Hello and welcome to the Cardiac Cats YouTube channel. I'm your host Jacob Shorba, and today we'll be doing our mock draft 8.0 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So with that said, there's a couple things I want to hit on first before we jump into this draft, so let's do exactly that. So this is being recorded one day before it's released. It's Wednesday, March 29th, and unfortunately with that, there is some bad news from this morning with Calais Campbell deciding he did not want to sign with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, definitely upset with that one, like most fans, but is what it is. Sometimes you just don't win, and I think this offseason you've seen plenty of that at this point with that. Darius Slay, watching free agents go to other teams, but it's not the end of the world. It's not like they cannot find another solution. And so I kind of want to talk about that and what they can do for a moment because it does impact how we draft, especially because I do believe there will be options available for Jacksonville to take after the NFL draft is over. We're less than a month away at this point. Actually, a month from now, it would be the third day of the NFL draft, I believe. So we'd be pretty far along into it and wrapping it up and know what the team's going to look like at that point. And there's still a lot of guys available. So, kind of want to take a look at that really fast. So, you see some of them already signed, a lot of the bigger names. But, you got Jadeveon Clowney. Not sure I'd touch him. But you kind of get into some guys that you can consider as you go down the list. I don't think Ngakwe's coming back. But you could look at a Leonard Floyd. That's definitely potential for the team that they could look into. Melvin Ingram is also another one of these older pass rushers like Justin Houston that's had a lot of production. Signed these one-year deals, produced for teams. He did for Kansas City, did it for Miami. You definitely are going to like that. And Justin Houston, he's still on the market. I think he'll probably be there a little longer. I would definitely be looking into him right now. If I was Jacksonville, I think it's the perfect kind of pivot plan if you want to find someone else who can be a big leader on the defense and change things, like you thought maybe Calais Campbell could. So you could look at him. You have Frank Clark still on the market. If you want a younger guy, obviously he's about 30, but he's still got time left in his career where he's going to be playing well. If you want to get someone like that who's known for his playoff prowess, you could definitely go that route. And I think finally the last name I'll throw out on here, which you could throw out some others as well, Rasheem Green, probably get a pretty decent deal. He's also a much younger player. I think he's going into his 6th season. Signed a one-year deal with the Houston Texans, played really well for them. I think he had about 5 sacks. So if you're looking to replace what Arden Key gave you, that's a pretty good option. So point is, there's still guys out here. You obviously see DeJuan Smoot. At this point, I honestly think Smoot's going to come back to the team. It's just a matter of working out how to negotiate a contract with that injury. And it seems like it's kind of warded off other teams so far. And we did hear this morning that Jacksonville is in contract negotiations with him and his agent. So they're trying to work around that. It's a big role in determining how much he's going to be paid. But realistically, we're probably looking at a one-year deal like this. Probably more money than that. But that'd be a solid route for the team to go. I think they need to bring Smoot back. I think it just makes too much sense. And you really think about it. If DeJuan Smoot comes back to this team, you pretty much have the same group of edge players you had in the playoffs because you're essentially replacing Arden Key with DeJuan Smoot, who has been more successful throughout his career so far, I would argue. And then you've also got Jordan Smith in the mix. So I think they're all right if they bring him back. Do think they need to add someone else, and I do think they're in a situation where, hey, if there is a great player on the board, could go after it. Maybe we make an aggressive move in this to go obtain someone. We'll see about that. If they want to make a big move, if that's what they're interested in, I think the clear option right now is Darius Smith. They saw the Minnesota Vikings sign another edge player. Can't remember who it was. Might have been Marcus Davenport, if I can recall. Not sure that was exactly who it was. Okay, yeah, Marcus Davenport. So they signed the top guy off the market, arguably. And so with Minnesota doing that, I think it makes it to where it's very possible that Zadarius Smith could leave. Although I think they could definitely utilize Davenport and some other guys. So just options to throw out there. Another thing that's going to kind of factor into what we do, we kind of figured early in the offseason, team's going to find a way to re-sign Evan Ingram. It's going to happen. They're going to be able to pay him enough. He's not going to ask for a record-breaking deal or anything, and he'll be in Jacksonville for a while. It's just a matter of negotiating it. However, those negotiations, from everything we've heard, have just not gone well. And I think what we know or believe we know at this point is that Evan Ingram wants to be considered more like a slot receiver. And if we're considering what Jacksonville pays slot receivers, that's $18 million a year. It's a lot of money. And so I think right now we're kind of in a spot where Jacksonville wants to pay him tight end money. Maybe they do like 11.5 to 12 million a year because that's what the franchise tag was worth. But Evan Ingram might want a lot more. And ultimately, I do think in the NFL draft, there is one option based off the way Doug Peterson calls plays. I apologize for my voice really early in the morning. Also, of course, cried for an hour and a half about Calais Campbell. That's a lie, by the way. But with Evan Ingram, I think there is one guy in this draft that could replace him and be better, and that's Dalton Kincaid. That's how I feel about him as a player. I think he's a fantastic tight end. Would be great to land. And so I think that puts that back on the table for Jacksonville. So I just want to put that out there too. Tight end is very much on the table for this team early in the draft with the way things are going. And with everything we've seen from Ingram since the year ended, I would not be shocked one bit if they went tight end. And here's the thing too. If they bring in Dalton Kincaid, that doesn't mean Evan Ingram can't come back to the team long term. They can literally just re-sign him to a long-term deal and use 2 tight ends. You can run 5 receivers on the field. You can have empty backfields. You can do stuff to have all these guys out there. So I think that's also an option. You could just argue it for that sake already. And we really want to get the best player in the first round long term. It's better. It's icing on the cake if he's at the biggest position in need, but we'll have to see how it looks. So with all this talked about, I think the only position that we absolutely have to hit with a valuable player is cornerback. And I think that can be done up until maybe around the 3rd round. There's also guys you can get later on, like a Jartavius Martin perhaps, that could end up coming in and filling in that role. So we'll see how it goes. I imagine we'll be picking one pretty early though. So we'll go pick by pick here. I want to just kind of see who goes off the board, if anyone falls. Guys I'm watching for falling would be probably Myles Murphy, Broderick Jones, and Nolan Smith. Because I think they would be just out of this world hits, which you see Myles Murphy off the board. No surprise there. But there is some talk about him going pretty late in the first round now, which kind of came out of nowhere. Kind of like that Anton Harrison pick, which I don't think is bad, but I don't see that very often. See Jalen Hyatt. Oh my gosh. So that's a little crazy. Zay Flowers, Jalen Hyatt are the first receivers off the board. I think we're going to have someone good fall here. Darnold writes off. Bijan Robinson to the Lions. There goes Jackson Smith and Jigba. So we're at pick 20. We have some really, really good names here. To the point where I don't think we're picking Dalton Kincaid. A Peter Skoronski would definitely be in play. Broderick Jones, Brian Branch. Although I probably might not be popular opinion, I'd probably take Kincaid over him We got Nolan Smith sitting here too. We're going to test our luck. So Will Levis, Skoronski, Quinn Johnston. We're going to have Broderick Jones and Nolan Smith here. And we got a choice. Oh boy. All right, so let's see. Who would we want to go with here? So between Broderick Jones and Nolan Smith, I have Broderick Jones ranked a bit higher on my board. I've got him at 9. I have him as the second best tackle in this class. I think he's really close to Paris Johnson, and you can argue that he is a better player. And I think Nolan Smith is pretty dang close too at 11. I would almost, as crazy as it might sound, with multiple guys being on the board, I would consider trading back here. And so I think what we'll do is we'll probably trade back to where the Buffalo Bills are and see if we get lucky with anyone. So I think someone could fall. I'm not sure Jones goes to... I think he could go to Buffalo, but I'm not sure he goes to the Giants or Cowboys. Not sure either of those teams pick edge either. Don't know what their need really looks like there too much. So we'll take probably those selections. That's a pretty fair trade. So they pick up an extra 4th. And then we'll also upgrade a 6th into a 5th. And that's a really early 5th rounder. There will probably be a very good player on the board at that point. Yeah, we see Broderick Jones go there. Jordan Addison, Trenton Simpson. All right. So I'm good with that. Because we're still getting a steal here. We trade back. And I think that's a fair trade because you could see the Bills go up for an offensive lineman. I really do believe that's something that could happen in this draft. I think as well, you consider the fact that you could see the Bengals make that kind of move, although I could see them go tight ends. I think that the Bills could trade up just to prevent the Bengals from doing it to them, because the Bengals are right in that spot. So that's very much possible. Now at this pick, though, this is going to be Nolan Smith. Our other options here, I don't think Brissy is a good candidate in the first round. I would take him with the second selection we have, but he is not falling that far. Michael Mayer, well, he's a really good tight end. I'm not sure he's the best fit for what Peterson wants to do. I think he could get it done, but I think there are better options, like Dalton Kincaid. And I really like Dalton Kincaid, but at the same time, I don't think he's better than Nolan Smith. I think Nolan Smith offers a lot more to the team. It would be great if we could land Kincaid, but we'll have to see how things go in the second round. Cyrus Torrance, another player I really like. I do think that Nolan Smith is exactly what this team needs at edge rusher, though. Well, Torrance is that on the interior. I think edge rusher is a bigger need for the team, arguably. And then Cam Smith, just don't think the prospect compares exactly. So this is going to be Nolan Smith. We're going to get him trading back, which is very fortunate. Not something I expected to happen, but that's the situation we're in. We've got a lot of 4th round selections. We're definitely going to look to consolidate this and move up in the second round. That's very much on the table. We see Hendon Hooker go first round. There goes Kincaid, unfortunately, which, hey, I mean, that's a good pick for the Eagles if they want to run the 2 tight ends again. Unfortunately, Stevenson's off the board. Cam Smith off. So we've got Torrance here still. Darnell Washington as well. B.J. Ojulari, although we hit edge. So we're not really looking at that position much now. Clark Phillips is still here too. Now that would just be a really good second round selection. Although we might need to trade up for him because of our situation here. Because there's not a whole lot of corners. I'm not going to trade up for Torrance. I'll let him go. Of course he goes to the Titans. That's how that works. And I think with Clark Phillips, we're going to take a risk here. Probably wait until close to the pick. Because I think I would rather try to keep this capital together if I can. I could always pivot to another guy. Because I think this team does have options later. And the only one I would really feel good with is probably Travius Hodges-Tomlinson. I think he could be a really good fit for the slot. But, you know, obviously he's got to be there too. We see the Lions went corner, so that's good. I think we'll just go straight to the pick. Yep, there we go. So you see Darnell Washington, unfortunately, off the board here too. I think looking at this board, Phillips would be my highest ranked player at this point. I also really, really like Chris Smith. It's another player I think could actually get it done for you. I think he could end up moving into a strong safety role with this team long term. So we'll definitely look at him in the third round. Adetomiwa Adebawore, hopefully I said that right at all. He'd be a really good pick for this team as well. That'd be a great selection in the second round, but obviously Nolan Smith's been taken. The value of a player like that goes down if this team obviously is going to keep Josh Allen around. So we're going to go Clark Phillips here. That's an easy pick. So I want to take a second, kind of talk about both of these players and what you're getting on your defense. So as far as where I've got him ranked, Nolan Smith was 11 for me. We saw that. Clark Phillips, for myself, is at 27. It's right below Tyreek Stevenson. And honestly, you can kind of flip these guys around. It's really close with both of them. Both players I really, really like. I think Clark Phillips should go in the first round. I really do. He's a player that showed a ton of talent in college, showed the ability to go toe-to-toe with really any receiver he was put up against. Did against Jordan Addison. Did against other guys as well. He's a big part of Utah's defense. Could also see a little bit of chemistry between him and, say, Devin Lloyd on the defense. And speaking of that, you're getting the same thing with Nolan Smith here. Because when those two were together, and I'm talking about him and Trayvon Walker, they did a lot on the defense. They were really hard to stop. And I think this also allows you to now have Trayvon Walker do stunts inside to really get creative with him. Because you know Nolan Smith as a player, he's going to be your speed rusher on the edge. That's the main thing he's going to do. He's probably not going to be as versatile to be able to like go onto the interior just because of his size. But he's going to get that speed rushing element for your team and let Trayvon Walker be the big, powerful guy that gets on stunts and gets good mismatches going. So this is a really good pairing for your defense. Really strong group of guys. So on the defensive side of the ball at this point, I think really what I would consider is probably trying to get someone to be a replacement at strong safety. I would definitely throw that in. And so maybe we're going after, you know, who was it again that we had on the board? Is Chris Smith. I would definitely consider trading up for him. So we're going to go kind of a pick at a time here. See how things fall. So we've got Keanu Benton still sitting on the board. That'd be a really valuable pick. And Derek Hall as well. Obviously we hit edge, but if players are falling this far, they're definitely in consideration. However, still, Chris Smith is the top guy here for me. Zach Harrison, be another person you could consider. So I think here, at this point, you've got Tucker Kraft even, Chris Smith, Zach Harrison, Rashee Rice. Could even look at him if you wanted to. There goes Zach Harrison. I get the feeling Chris Smith's going to go off the board before our selection. So we're going to move up for him. And while it says he's a free safety on here, a lot of what you see from strong safeties is these guys who can come up and impact the run. That's one big element to it that's different. You do ideally want someone who's a bit bigger, a bit stronger, but Chris Smith overcomes that in the way he plays the game. He's a very, very intelligent player. One of the most intelligent that we see at the college level right now. So we're going to try to get a decent trade going here. A lot of the time, we're usually undercutting this a little bit, so we'll offer a little extra. We're going to give up that early 5th round selection, I think, to move up here. I'm not sure we'd have anywhere else we can really swap around. Maybe we're looking at... maybe not there. Might be a little too rich. We'll move up here. Make it a little more fair. And that'd probably work out. Because I think a straight up early 5th for moving up about 6 spots isn't a whole ton. Or that's too much, rather. So, you could also consider Tucker Kraft here. I would really like that selection too. In the 3rd round, I think that'd be a good way for this team to go. However, I think at this point, you're really just not going to get your second tight end that's going to be able to make a huge impact unless you're taking a shot on someone late. So I think here, we're going to prefer to take Chris Smith. Now, what this does, getting him in the building, he's a guy you can play slot corner. That's an important thing right off the bat, because now you might question re-signing Trey Herndon for the amount of money he's getting, because if you have one injury on the outside, you're moving Clark Phillips out there, right? But now Chris Smith is probably your slot corner. He's probably playing there a decent amount. But I think long-term what you see with this move is you're getting him in the backfield along with Andre Sisco. You're getting a really good pairing. You have one guy who's, obviously a big playmaker. You got another guy who does it too, but really processes at a high level. That's where his strength comes from. For me, he's also ranked really high on my board. I've got him around 40. And I would not be shocked if he went really early in the 2nd round. I think despite some worries about athleticism, he's a super talented player in the way he processes the game, the intelligence he brings. He's the kind of player that, you could argue that's not the biggest need on the team. I want to bring him in. So, gave a lot of love to the defense here. Really hit about every need on that side of the ball. So, probably look to the offense. Gotta see what's available, though. Now, I want to go one pick at a time still at this point, because there's other places we'd like to target. Usually, Hodges Tomlinson would be in consideration, but obviously we just got another secondary player. So we're probably looking at Xavier Hutchinson with our next pick. I think that would definitely be powerful to get. Wanya Morris, and then Moro Ajamo would probably be the guys I would look at automatically. You also got Zach Kuntz in here. So, I don't know if Xavier Hutchinson falls this far, because at this point, he's getting close to being the top guy, but you do have 2 other guys above him. So we're going to keep weighing on that. We're going to hope he falls. And if he doesn't, he doesn't. We see Wanya Morris off the board. Pretty unfortunate for the offensive tackle position, and Zach Kuntz off the board. So, got some players going now. Travius Hodges Tomlinson. At this point, we'll see what a trade looks like to move up there. I would give up that 6th rounder to make that move. I would be okay with that. Because I think what you're getting in Xavier Hutchinson is really, really beneficial to this team, considering what you lost in Marvin Jones. I think this is worth the move. I also don't think you're getting great selections in the 6th round, or necessarily players who are going to make a big impact. I am all for this team consolidating. So this pick here, we're only looking at receivers there, but this is definitely going to be Xavier Hutchinson. So you hit the offensive side of the ball now. What does Xavier Hutchinson offer the Jaguars, would be the question. Well, he's your contested catch guy, right off the bat. Player who, when he's playing outside, profiles really close to Marvin Jones. Also has fantastic size as a receiver. I've got him ranked a heck of a lot higher than they do. I'll tell you that. He ran pretty well in the 40-yard dash, better than expected, a low 4.5. That's not necessarily amazing, but for the kind of player he is, being a strong contested catch kind of guy, you'll definitely welcome that kind of speed. He's also a player that you could see go inside or outside. Could really do all those roles. He excels at the contested catch, like we talked about. Really good route runner, and he's a good blocker. Does well at it. And so, for what you're trying to get from him, I think you replace Marvin Jones. You get a young receiver to develop who could start on this team, and you get a really valuable selection in the 4th round. So I hope the draft falls this way. I really do, because this would be fantastic. But I think you probably have to select him in the 3rd round. But that's just kind of how this one goes. Moved up a few spots, so we're going to have to wait here a second. So we'll just kind of go pick by pick. And here we are. So you got Zach Pickens available here. That would be one option we could consider. Isaiah McGuire is another pretty good defensive lineman. But at this point, yeah, out of all these options, I would go Moro Ajamo. I think he's going to be a really solid interior defensive lineman. I think I've got him ranked as well on here. I think I did him at some point here recently. So let's see if we can get any notes. Maybe not. No, it was Wanya Morris I did. Never mind on that. But Moro Ajamo, just from watching a little bit of film, pretty underrated defensive lineman at this point. I think he'd be a really good fit to come in here in a rotational role. You bring him in, add him to that rotation. Assuming you're able to get Dewan Smoot back, you have a really strong defensive line group. And imagine if you got another guy in, like a Justin Houston. You know, get that leader in who can develop these players. That room is packed. You've got one of the better pass rushing rooms in the league with the potential to be among the best. So I think that's a really good fit for this team. And you talk about the secondary, what you've done there. You've pretty much set yourself up for the long-term future with this draft. And you got yourself a young receiver. Someone who could probably start for this team. Someone I expect to start at some point. So now we go to our next selection here. See Zach Pickens off the board. Could have been an option, but isn't going to be in this case. We would like to get an offensive tackle or a tight end. This is probably going to be Luke Schoonmaker. I don't know much about the tackles at this point in the draft. I think really where we're at, you're not going to get someone who's going to be great. That's one thing I kind of got missed out on. So maybe you got to make a trade. Maybe you got to go get someone from free agency that can do it, maybe not at a high level. It's probably the situation. And I'll tell you one option that you would have if that's the case. Perhaps Mekhi Becton from New York. That's one person they're talking about potentially moving on from. So I could definitely consider that. Now, a fun option here, if we wanted to invest in the running back room again, which I don't think we can. I just think there's too many people in that room. The value is very limited in drafting another guy. Kenny McIntosh would be a lot of fun. Be a really valuable receiving back. Him in a Doug Peterson offense would be a great fit for this team. However, I think Dearness Johnson has already really filled the hole that was remaining, and he fills it in about every aspect you needed for the team. Really good signing. And Roshan Johnson, another guy we liked early on, would have been a great blocker for this team, and a really good complementary back like he did in college. But this pick's going to be Luke Schoonmaker. I think you could see him go in the 3rd round, go a bit higher. He's one of those middle tight ends, and maybe the team's able to develop him into something. But if you're getting like a solid secondary tight end, that's good. That's really good for the team. So, based off the draft needs they've got here, which are pretty accurate, I would say strong safety is essentially filled with Chris Smith, because that's the role you're kind of wanting to put him into. Whether or not that works out, that's the intention. So, yeah, at this point, it's really offensive tackle that you have left. So we're going to skip forward because we've got an eternity till the next pick. We've consolidated a little bit. Still got 8 selections, though, because of the early trade back. And ultimately, we did have a shot at getting an offensive tackle. We had a shot at getting Broderick Jones early on. I think that would have been really nice for the team. Let's kind of think about what do we trade for in that scenario? We got a 4th, and we upgraded a 6th to a 5th rounder. So with that 4th selection, you got a tight end to throw onto the team. Not super valuable, but that 5-2 was used to move up in the 3rd round. And you also got a little more back. So that 5-2 was able to take you from, getting a decent prospect in the 3rd round to landing Chris Smith. So this capital that we got from moving back to get Nolan Smith instead, we landed Chris Smith with that. Probably a long-term solution in the secondary. And you get a tight end you can develop that's picked at a pretty good point in the draft for him. So you could argue either way on that, in all honesty, because some people would probably rather take Broderick Jones. But I think ultimately this does fit the need a little more, because edge, this is talking about a guy who will probably start in some capacity, whereas offensive tackle is going to be more so a swing tackle at first, and you're hoping he can start at guard, which you'd find a way to get Broderick Jones on the field. So at this pick, this might be Nick Saldiveri. Probably just go highest offensive tackle here. You've also got Warren McClendon, be another person you could bring in. Make sure there's no really good players dropping. They did talk with Tyler Lacey recently, although I highly doubt they consider him super high on their board out of all the players in this draft. I think that's more so just meeting with guys they want to learn more about or learning about a program. Brandon Strange would have been decent at this point too, but you got Schoonmaker. So I think this is going to be Nick Saldiveri. Let's hit on the offensive tackle spot. Hope we get someone who might be able to be that swing tackle. We'll go to our final pick here. We'll wrap this up and kind of talk about everything again. And so at this point, I think, assuming, there's no one else here that's like a home run. Let's go Trey Dean. He was a heck of a lot higher than this before, but you see what a bad combine does for you. People hate you after, they think you're the worst player ever, and here you are in the 7th round. I think that's a good pick for this team, and you hit strong safety. You do end up getting that finally. So we're going to let this finish here, and let's recap this draft. So looking at how the roster looks now, considering what's been done in free agency, which is really 3 signings so far, and obviously who you added in the draft. I think on the offensive side of the ball, that's where you really didn't do as much, but you addressed running back in free agency. You addressed it really well, I would argue, which was a good move because now you don't have to take someone in the 4th round, and you see us make different selections that hit on other needs. So running back was resolved there as far as your depth at that position. You see at receiver, they got a young player, which is something you wanted to bring into this team. And then at tight end, you get a backup. It's not a high-end backup, but someone you can develop that has some good skills and tools to bring to the NFL. Got him at a really good value in this. On the offensive line, didn't really do much there. The one place that they should really feel like they have to address is that swing tackle spot. So perhaps Nick Saldiveri does that. But if I was them, I would 100% be in play to go trade a pick, to go land a Mekhi Becton kind of player, or just anyone who hits the trade block that could help you at that position, or if you see a guy in free agency. I would definitely consider that. So on the offensive side of the ball, that's really where not as much was done, but you still hit positions of need. You got a really good young receiver. You got a young tight end that you can turn into maybe your second guy and more of your blocking guy. And then you got an offensive tackle to just really try out. So talking about the other side of the ball and what we really hit a lot harder, I think you've addressed every need you could have on that side of the ball. I do believe that because you look at the defensive line, you brought in Moro Ajamo for the interior. You have more depth there, which is already turned into a pretty good spot this offseason with Roy Robertson Harris sticking around. On the edge side of things, you brought in Nolan Smith. He brings exactly what the team's missing, a speed rushing threat. And he's also someone who played with Trayvon Walker. Very successful with him. They did a lot together in college, and I think Nolan Smith is the kind of player that you'd love to bring into this team. You also did it while trading back. Gave you an extra selection, allowed you to hit another position of need. I think that selection was great for this team. Very shocking that he was there, but we're in a weird spot where you had two players you would have considered trading up for, fall to 24, took a risk by falling back, and ended up getting one of them. So I think you feel good about your defensive line and your pass rushing group after that. Then you look at corner. I think Clark Phillips is still a candidate to go first round. Played fantastic for the Utah Utes. I would definitely consider him at this pick. I think if he's on the board, it might be one you rush up to the podium for. And instead of just calling it good there, you got Chris Smith as well. You got a guy who can start alongside Andre Sisco if needed as a long-term starter, if this team moves on from Rayshawn Jenkins. And you've got someone that if one of your corners goes down, you can move Chris Smith to the slot position. So you have really good contingency plans on this team for the majority of your positions. And you also got Trey Dean. We'll throw that in. So another guy at strong safety that you add on. I think your only weaknesses really is if you have a tackle go down and if you have Evan Ingram go down. I think that would be about it for the team. Outside of that, obviously you could see like players not develop and that sort of thing. But your team's pretty set despite not spending in free agency. So ultimately, pretty dang happy with this one. This might be among the better ones we've had, if not the best one so far. And it's a heck of a lot of luck, I would say too, because I don't know if the board's falling like this, but we took advantage of it. Our risks were well calculated. We got good rewards on them and ultimately landed a lot of good players. But hey, we'll see what they do in real life. We're really just projecting needs, talking about players. That's the whole point of these. So with that said, I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And finally, go Jags.